What's up, y'all? Will here with Schedulefly, and this is the Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast brought to you by us here at Schedulefly. Super simple, web-based restaurant employee scheduling and communication software, and is backed by legendary customer service. What does legendary mean? It means my personal cell phone, 18 years into this business, my personal cell phone is still on the schedulefly.com website on like 3 pages. This is it. It is a flip phone, but it gets texts and it gets calls, and you can call me anytime and you'll get me. And I'm always happy to help. And then we have a low price point. So simple software, phenomenal customer service, low price point. If you were on pencil and paper, Excel, Google Sheets, y'all, I mean, it is 2025, almost 2026. You need a simple tool that helps everything from forecasting your labor to just streamlining all your communication, all your call outs, shift trades, time off requests, fire drills. And you want your team to have an app with their schedule and their communication at their fingertips. That's what this generation expects. So schedulefly.com, 30-day free trial. And again, call me, text me. I'm happy to talk to you about our business. Also, if you're in another scheduling software, a lot of great ones out there. A lot of them with a lot of VC funding, or they're owned by private equity, which means they're really expensive. And you might, particularly in today's climate, be looking for ways to, trim some things. And we will provide you a wonderful scheduling software and great communication with a smile and great support for a lot less money than you're paying. So schedulefly.com. All right, that's enough about that. I am freaking fired up, Jason, to have you on this podcast today. I've got things, as I mentioned, that I want to talk to you about. We're going to go all over the place today, but just take a second and introduce yourself.
I'm even going to take a second back from that and say, for anybody listening, the number one digital tool, if you are looking to adopt digital tools, is scheduling. And I've said it for years. And a lot of it ties into what I do in leadership development of managing restaurants suck less so that you're not sitting there and taking these call off shifts and texting and all this type of stuff. So I have nothing to do with sales of scheduling. And I will tell every single restaurant owner, the first tool that you adopt is get off the Excel sheet and move to a digital scheduler. So there you go. My name is Jason Berkowitz. I'm a longtime restaurant operator. Along the path is where I learned that's the first tool you need to do. Um, and have been a part of independents, mom and pops, scaled multiple different restaurant groups. And I'm currently the CEO and founder of Arrow Up Training. We launched 7 years ago. And what we do is we help restaurants satisfy compliance, lower their risk, and develop their supervisors into leaders. I
Mm.
am 100% an operator at heart, and everything I do comes from the lens of being a restaurant operator. I'm still a partner in multiple concepts, and so I'm excited to be here.
Love it, dude. All right. So your bio I was reading, operations futurist, small business champion. Awesome. Uh,
Yep.
and human enthusiast. So why those? Let's talk about that a little bit.
I think small business, let's start with that one, is where, especially I love independent restaurants. It's where weirdos like myself had a place to find structure and community and feel like a place that I can push the boundaries, test the boundaries, feel like we belong. Um, and so I think it's crucial that we do all that we can to support independent restaurants and independent small businesses because there's these little micro hubs and little bits of community with economic stability. And if we can give them the economic stability that then they can invest in their teams and their businesses, it's the heartbeat of every single community. I think it's a huge piece of the fabric of our country, of any location, of anywhere across the world.
Yeah.
Well, free areas. And so I put everything into it. It's absolutely what I love. So you have that operations specialist. I think, one of the great ways that we can create structure around people who can let their freak flags fly at work and find out who they are is you put up these guardrails of expectations.
Mhm.
Um, along the way that we'll talk about this journey, I learned everyone just needs to know two things. What's my job and how am I doing? And what's my job is setting expectations, and that's structured and that's, putting it down in some sort of scalable, repeatable system that's transferable person to person, location to location. And that's in operations. Um, so that's for the operations. The human enthusiast, psychology degree. And I don't know if and I think it imparted my way of management. And I don't know if what I learned in psychology helped me be a better servant leader, or it's just that I love people and I love building a space where people can be a part of something while still capturing their own identity. And I think that's about understanding the psyche, the human nature. You've talked about vulnerability before and the power in that. So when you mix a little vulnerability mixed with expectations, mixed with structure, mixed with small business, you have these beautiful pH balanced ecosystems that build
Mm.
community and authenticity.
pH balanced ecosystems. I love that. I'm stealing it. I'm going to steal it.
Good.
I will cite you. Okay. Well, we have a lot to dive into and a lot to unpack. Just if, the only thing I always ask every guest, when and why did you first get into hospitality?
Yeah, and I was thinking about this, and it's always a great kickoff question. I'm gonna take the core root of hospitality, not necessarily in the restaurant for this one. I
Sure.
am a fourth generation of funeral directors. So
Okay.
my family are the town Jewish funeral directors, and the town funeral directors happens to be a Jewish funeral home in Cleveland, Ohio. We launched in 1918. So this is a huge piece of a community that is a very tight and close community,
Mm,
and a community with high expectations.
mm,
And a story that really stood out for me was I was younger and I was washing cars by 10 years old there and going in and cleaning up the place and was really put to work. And you could do that in the 80s and in Cleveland, Ohio, put your kid to work at that time.
yeah.
And I remember walking in once and seeing my father, who's a funeral director. I'm not, but he was a third generation, as is his father and his grandfather. And I remember watching my dad in this moment with this gentleman where it started to get heated in the sense of the gentleman started to get angry at my father. And I watched my dad, somebody who's a proud man who I've seen have a temper of his own and just, a proud man, nothing crazy, just sit there and let this guy point a finger at him, yell at him, berate him, and turn and walk away. And later that day, I looked at my father and I went, "Why did you not knock that guy out? Right? How did you just stand there and take that?" And he had said to me, he's like, "Jason, look, you know, our business is to make things perfect. Our business is to take care of people. And it's where I learned about the details and the importance of making sure that you're really taking care of all the details of service. But here was a moment of hospitality." And he
Mhm.
said to me, "When we take care of people, they're pretty much at their lowest and their worst. You know,
Yeah.
this guy hasn't slept. He's scared. He's absorbing everything that his family's going through. He wasn't, it wasn't about what he was yelling at me. It's just what I needed to be for him in this moment. He needed to let it out, and I was just the person he needed to let it out. And that's our role sometimes. And we got to figure out what our role is to be the best person to support them and to support our community at this time." And that was it. And then he went on with his day, my
Yeah.
father. And I remember absorbing that and just that idea of being able to shift your ego to truly support what somebody needs in that moment was definitely a strong, impactful part of my hospitality journey that carries over to the point probably, years later, here I am at Tom Colicchio's restaurant Craft, opening it up for them in Century City. And they would, anytime they had to ask somebody back who maybe had a bad experience or complaint, they would put me on their table because they're like, "We don't know how you do it, Berkowitz, but you will take the most difficult people in the business and make them feel loved and make them feel cared for. and get them to come back. And we'll back you up with service, but get on the front lines. And so when I was thinking about, I know you love to ask that question. It's like here's pretty much probably the origin when I think about it.
Mm, I love that. That is one of the coolest origin stories I've heard because look, as Will Gadura's book has proven, hospitality is not just the hospitality industry. I mean,
Right.
hospitality can be provided in any business and should be. Rarely is, unfortunately, these days, but should be. It's how you make somebody feel welcome and appreciated in your business. It just happens to be that is what the hospitality industry is and is all about. So, okay, that's so freaking cool, man. And you have done, I mean, I know you have done a lot you've opened over 50 restaurants, you've been involved with all kinds of different groups. Um, why did you decide to not continue operating and opening restaurants and start Aero? And when did you decide to do that?
About 7 years ago, I was the chief operating officer for the Madera Group at the time, and we were growing fast. And my role that I was really loved was if you had a good concept at work, you would bring me in on the early days to two to locations to five locations, and I would go in. And I did this for a few restaurant groups. And I would say, nobody talk to me for 30 days. I'm going to run around, learn everybody's position, and build the training program. Because back to the idea of, everyone wants to know what's my job and how am I doing? What's my job is establishing the training. How am I doing is the feedback, which is, a different, fluid conversation. So I would put this structure into place because then we set the expectations, everyone knew, and to grow. And I loved it. And in a lot of instances, what you would do is take that information and then secure capital to grow.
Hmm.
And I would even say to them, even as a COO, I'm not turning on my email until I get done with this, because the second I get into reactive mode, I'm no longer proactive. If I become the operator putting out fires, then I'm a firefighter. I'm no longer preventing them. And I would bake that into my contract. I'm not literally not opening up my email for 2 weeks or whatnot. You can use my personal one. And so for this last group, the Madera group, we had secured the capital and they were ready to grow. And at that time, once it becomes a private investment game, PE and growth, and I know it's a part of your culture internally too. It shifts, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of people need that money to follow what their path is. I'm great getting you to that path,
Hmm.
and then you grow. And so at that point, I realized that I'd been thinking a bit about launching Arrow up and this idea of out of the box training. And it felt like the right time because I was ready to do it and had structured myself a good exit. And so I could really put some focus and some time into this. I started with anti-harassment and compliance training because I said to my brother and a couple people, I'm going to build this out of the box training to turn it on for all independent restaurants and it's going to work. And they all said the same thing. And I picked your brain a little bit on this in the early days. And they all said to me, you didn't say, but they said the same thing. They're not going to pay for that. They're not ready for that. Go solve a problem that they need right now. And so I started with anti-harassment training because it was becoming an intense conversation. It was shifting, right? This is 2019. I had always brought compliance training into whatever restaurant group I was a part of before it was even mandatory. And I never felt like any of them really spoke to us. And they never, it was all just very black and white. They didn't talk about the gray area. These weren't restaurant stories. I wrote a book, Please Don't Sleep with the Host. That was the reason I'd called you originally after reading Uncorked and all of this. And I was like, all right, I want to get this out there.
Dude, oh my
You
gosh. I
remember that?
remember that conversation. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
2000 and like 13 or 14, your phone rang and I was like, I want to write this book and I love your book.
I didn't
Yeah.
have the, yeah, that's what people need. It's actually one of the things that I listed from your bio to talk about today. Okay, so God, I totally remember that.
Yeah.
I
And
remember
so
being
the
like,
idea is uh,
woo.
I'll
it's going
get to it. Is
to,
the idea was that it was just this quick bathroom reader, right? 50 tips and whatnot. So it's the idea that it's a gray area. As I said, we're a bunch of weirdos and whatnot. And so I saw this as being a course that we could create that could satisfy compliance, check the box that needed to be checked, but get into the details of stories and talk to us about the gray area and not always just a smack on the wrist and hopefully help our culture shift. So we started with that and did a great job. And it's our number one course right now. And so I'm glad that was the advice. And that's where we got really into storytelling as a way of leading. That then led to safety, which because insurance brokers were coming on board saying, this is great. What else do you got? We took this real mixed media stew art approach. It's high design um, content with the goal of a minimal effective dose. That's what we do. What's the smallest, shortest way that we can get in and get out, which then led to leadership development. So it's been this incredible journey, but I knew I wanted to get into scalable training to help the industry, to take all the lessons that I had learned and share them in a scalable way with the industry that I love.
minimum effective dose. I love that concept. Do you read a lot?
Do I read a lot?
Do you read a lot? Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Are you being a psychology, having a psychology background? Like, are you familiar with Nassim Taleb?
A little bit, but not nearly enough. No.
Anti-Fragile is a book that he
Yeah,
wrote I really like. But he
I'm
could get,
writing it down.
yeah, it's just like the idea that any object has it's one of three categories. It's either fragile, like if I had a teacup right now and I dropped it on this hard floor, it'll break. It's robust, like this wood table I'm sitting at. I knock on it, it doesn't hurt it, but it doesn't get better. And then anti-fragile was the term that he coined, which is something that benefits from stress, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Effective dose. And, using acute stressors to get better and get stronger, which then gets into that mindset of, leaning into challenges, leaning into problems and using those as opportunities to get better. As one of my guests said recently, and I loved it so much, uh, calling these challenges we have in life experience assets, which is
that's
just
cool.
love that phrase. Yeah, I love
Yeah, it's better than opportunities that we talk about in restaurant operations where there's a problem over there. We have an opportunity.
it.
I like experience challenges.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay, we'll talk about. I'm very curious about Please Don't Sleep with the Host and some of the main take. I know there's 50, but some of the main takeaways from that you still see happening today that are just things that the industry, unfortunately, some of the um, some of the aspects of the industry that continue to need to change and evolve and improve. What are some of those things that you're seeing that are common that are also things that we can solve for?
I think, a big piece of the book is that connect the dots as much as possible, uh, and try to take your ego out of a little bit. So I say work like you own the place, never forget you don't. Um, which is I think important for people to and everyone's kind
Oh,
of worried about like what's my worth or not worth, or they're always comparing themselves or judging their worth on something, and it's just sort of like this idea: work like you own the place, have autonomy, work with it, but know that somebody else probably put pen to paper and owns the deed on the business, and to understand what that is. So pulling your ego out of it and working towards whatever this higher ground in this picture is something.
I love this, and this gets back to something you about pH balance because this is such great advice, Jason. Really for anybody. My kids are home from college. Well, I got one 10th grader and two in college, and one of the things that they're if you're in college right now and you're getting ready to graduate, it's a tough job market, and one of the lessons I think is so important is, I mean, you just freaking crushed it right there, bro. Like, get rid of your ego. Okay. Like, you may have to take a job that you think is, quote, beneath you. But I will tell you this, if you work like you own that place, but remember that you don't. I don't care where you're working.
Yeah,
That is a very, very valuable life lesson, and you will thrive there unless it's just a horrible work environment or whatever. But
sure.
like if you're in the right work environment, and to your point, in a small business in particular, where you get to actually know the owner, learn from the owner, man, that's phenomenal advice that if followed intentionally, you will succeed.
And to pick up on that, one of the most important things I think to any restaurant owner is to look internally and say, have I put the operational structure into place to set those guardrails so that people can come and they know what it means to please me as an owner, what the expectation is, what we need, what the managers need. Too many people think they haven't taken the time to get it out of their head and to put a standard operating procedure in place or set the training or things like that. And I have a general philosophy, which is organized people work for organized environments.
Mm,
And far too often people complain about the talent that they get or don't get, but they haven't put a set of systems in place so that they can attract the people that will show up and work like they own the place and never forget they don't and want to stay in that environment because they like their growth and they don't feel like it's such a messy place.
mm,
And I've come to the point where I've fired operators. You ever something like that where I'm just like, it's not worth it because you're not you're not putting in the effort to attract the right people and giving them the tools of clarity that they need to succeed, right? And so if we go back to that first question about small business, it's so important to build an environment that we're growing and developing the future generations and who's working and whatnot. So if we're not setting that up with structure and success, that's on us. And truthfully, get out of the way. Like I get rid of the lease and get the lease to somebody who will put those four walls together and actually build an environment. And it's something I've been getting a little bit more bullish on, where I can even tell from communication on a sale or something that's sort of coming through if it's going to be a long-term partnership. I don't ghost per se, but I don't follow up. Like,
mm.
I want to help the good operators and the good owners attract the team, and they need help. And we can do this with our institutional knowledge, and it's an ever-shifting world. But going back to that quote, let's put an environment so we attract the people that we want. Organized people work in organized environments and they leave. And to me, the two best turnover killers are do that and actually invest and get to know who your team is personally. And those are the two best ways to lower turnover, which not to turn left, but you know, I think it's such an important piece.
Organizational structure and knowing your teammates, which goes back to they should be able to answer the questions, what is my job and how am I doing?
And if your team can't answer that, get jump in. I mean, literally think about every team member there and be like, do they know what their expectation is, and do they know how they're doing here? And whether
Mm.
it's formal review, whether it's, you know, hanging out, shooting the shit together, whatever that is, do they know? It's huge. It's huge. It's almost everything.
Yeah, I mean,
And don't mess with the money. Get their paychecks on time. So there's that.
and get them their paychecks on time. Um, talk about, it's interesting because there is this confluence of technology and humanity that you need the right balance in a restaurant to have, like you said, like don't don't sit and write schedules on paper or Excel for three. Like, so you need some tools. There's been a massive amount of investment into restaurant technology. Sometimes it's designed for the operator by somebody who's operated and knows. Sometimes it's designed by people that think operators ought to use this stuff because they're really smart and the people that gave them venture capital are really smart. And But there's a lot of restaurant tech out there, and now we have AI coming in. Where I'm going with this is I'm very curious your thoughts on the balance of having the right tools in place to free you to focus on the human piece of this. When you talk about being a human enthusiast, I am too. And the only way that we can mend what may be a lot of, angst and things going on in our culture right now is through conversations and humanity. And a lot of that takes place or should take place and hopefully will take place again in communities, at restaurants, where you want to feel welcome and loved and appreciated and have somebody that's intentional interacting with you so that you can get away from the technology long enough to have conversations with your friends and your family and your neighbors and your colleagues.
Um, if the 100%, the answer to me is how can technology complement my strength or support my weakness? So let's talk about scheduling. Aside from the idea of, first take away this idea of that we all got to text each other, where I'm spending time doing something that I don't need to spend time. So I'll actually backtrack. The first thing that I love what technology does is gets me off the out of the back office or off the phone and spending time with people. So that's it. First and foremost, anything that can simplify and automate so that I can spend more time out there, have more genuine conversations, spend more time in the weeds with my team. That's first and foremost, right? That's the best part of it. Get out of the mundane. The other part of it, going back to what I started with, is I can build an incredible pro forma. I absolutely love it. I obsess over it. I can absolutely put Excel sheets and do things together. But if you're really asking me to figure out sales percentage per labor hour, and we're getting into or how do I build the perfect schedule, or Jenny wants to work on Tuesdays but not on Fridays, it's just my brain, the puzzle, it doesn't like it. And the fact that, so I'm going to spend more time than most people because I also need to make sure that it's right. So I will take my sense of pride and sense of ownership and sense of dedication that I will triple check this thing. Think of all the time that I'm wasting by not being on the floor with my team, the thing that I excel at. What am I
Right.
better at? I'm better, going back to the idea of you have an upset customer coming in the door. You do not want me in the back office trying to figure out the labor percentage or answering people's texts because they're calling out tomorrow. You want me absolutely on the floor, ready to handle that guest and ready to do it. And I think as we look to build the farm league, but without the numbers, that isn't available, right? The two most important words I learned as a restaurant, as a small business owner, years ago, it was taught to me. I think I was 13, cash flow. And he was like, I remember it was something. He was like, Jason, you're going to learn one day. I was selling suits. And he was like, cash flow. And he was trying to he's like, those are the two most important words to respond. So if you don't get the labor percentage right, you don't have the money in the bank to invest in the teams to do all this type of stuff. But some people love to work on that stuff. And some people should be, taking care of some of the numbers and different things like that. Absolutely. Just put people where they love to be. And so this is what I'm saying is, as we struggle to get managers and leaders and build the farm league, I think as much as we can get rid of the crappy stuff, just get rid of the crappy stuff. So let's go to technology. Automate your scheduling. Put a system in place so that your repair and maintenance is scheduled so that your manager isn't dealing with an ice machine that went down and then they got to come in at 6 in the morning or 7 in the morning because they got to meet the ice guy, but they closed the night before and now they're tired, right? Technology solves that. Just automate this type of stuff so that then we can attract people who like to work with people, attract managers, people who love hospitality. And then we're going to build the farm league and we're going to build people up in this industry because we've got to do everything we can to build the next generation and always be sourcing and developing the next generation. And that comes down to spend the least amount of time, use technology to spend the least amount of time dealing with stuff we don't need to, so we can maximize the amount of time that's based around hospitality and people and people.
Love it. I wrote down a note, second location sinkhole, Jason. There are a lot of people that have fallen into that sinkhole. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I would tell you if you're opening up your second location, um, there's two most important things I would say to do is here's how you do it. You ready? Here's how you're going to do it. You're thinking about it. First off, uh, don't pick it alone as the owner. If a perfect spot opens up next door and there's something like that and it's perfect, maybe so. But you know what? Get somebody like a real estate broker involved. Get them involved. Go through, look at the data of your socio-demographics. There's so many tools out there right now telling you who's buying what they're buying, what's working, what their economic status is. Map that. It's too easy to not map that against a location in an area. Map that into your pro forma. Map that into what you're doing.
What are some
So,
tools for doing that? Do you know some specific tools that I talked to somebody earlier that said there's actually a tool through the post office, like a postal service, where you can do some of that for free. But what are some other tools? Can you think of them
um,
off your head?
I can tell you Forte is coming out and growing. They were the people that were part of Compete. They're doing something. Red Onion can help you do it, which used to be Marketing Vitals. Any real estate broker will give you their tools. They should have it, and if they don't, consider another real estate broker.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, don't solve it yourself. So that's there. So you've got that. Then you negotiate a good lease where you understand what's going on with your percentage, where you're not looking at 8% plus or over 10% of whatever your sales are that you're paying for your lease. I love a percentage rent lease. I think that's part of the future, and people are really doing it. Get your landlords to be your partners. So you love the
What
space.
percentage rent lease?
So a percentage rent lease is right. So the landlord, maybe there's a base, but they make more money. You hit a threshold, which is like after a certain number of sales, X amount, they then make money with you and they get a percentage of what those sales are. Now, you got to be careful. Maybe it's not a percentage of to go sales because you're giving away such high percentages to your third party delivery platforms. Again, that goes back to the right real estate broker and the right attorney who's structuring your lease. So get a good lease. Next, and we're going to keep this simple though. Look through your operations and say, have I systematized everything? Is there a standard operating procedure so that I can walk into the next location and it is very clearly how we do our operations?
Yep. Okay.
I'll help you. There's a lot of people that will help you with that. And even AI will help you a lot. Now, here's the one that most people don't think about that I think is the as important as all of this. What is your critical path to opening? What is your project management tool that everybody is using so that before you go in, and it could be a Excel sheet, it could be Monday.com if you want to use it, it could be Trello, you need, and reach out to me if you don't have one because I'm basically going to be giving mine away that I've got to clean it up a little bit and give it away to people. But here's the thing. Your project management to opening tool is tells everybody what do I need to do and where am I in the process and when's the anticipated opening date? Because it lists it, it sets it, and by having a dynamic date that fluctuates, some people might be thinking they're opening up in September, but you're not opening up till January. So
Mm.
because you missed an inspection or you forgot to get the sign to put up front or all these things that you didn't think took amount of time, knowing the left hand's not talking to the right hand, forget these critical path meetings that are 5 hours long every week. Put it on a spreadsheet. Use your critical path meeting. It's called the critical path, the project management tool to opening. Use that meeting to solve problems together and then have a real date because here's what happens. No one communicates. You go way over budget. Somebody thinks that we're opening on a date that we're not opening up. They hire a bunch of people. People are standing out front. They can't get in the building because you didn't have an expansion, an inspection. You're paying $100 plus per person. Now you're sending them back. You're They eventually leave because now you realize 2 weeks is going to turn into a month. And lo and behold, no one was talking to each other. And this absolutely would have solved that for you. Thank you for letting me go on a rant. But I just saved so many people hundreds of thousands of dollars, a divorce, bankruptcy, and lawsuits with their partners just by that rant I went on.
No, it's a great rant and it's important. I mean, that's
Was
why I
that what
wanted
you
to
were looking
ask.
for?
Hell yeah, dude. I mean, yeah, we can dive deeper into that because it is a sinkhole, and a lot of people, you know, possibly got location one right for reasons that maybe there was a little luck involved, whatever it was, but like just thinking that, okay, we got this, now let's go do two. I mean, there's a lot of people that wind up going, you know what, uh, two locations now with three times the problems and, not as much profitability and a lot of headaches and everything else if you don't get that right.
Yeah. And if you do, it's a great way to do it, but it's 100%. You start uh stealing from the first location.
Mhm.
And I've watched so many businesses go from 5 to 7 or 3 to 5, and all of a sudden the fourth location just tanks because they didn't plan accordingly, and all resources go to that location. All resources go to that bad location. It's terrible. Think about time zones before you expand, right? Maybe you're on one coast and you're like, we're going to do this in New York now, and it's going to be great. Okay, well, that's 3 hours ahead. So when the produce delivery doesn't arrive at 6 in the morning or 7 in the morning, that's 4 in the morning your time. Who's taking the call? And
Mm.
there's these things you've got to think about, and if you don't, it's going to be chaos either way. I mean, that's fun. There's just you can mitigate a lot of it. I've talked to a lot of people. I've told people not to hire me multiple times when I was doing it as a consultant because I was like, you're taking, 600,000 to the bottom line. Here's what's going to happen if you go, this is a good life. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen when you take this money and do this thing. And, you know, 80% of the time I'm right. So
Yeah.
yeah, I talk people out of it a lot, you
Talk
know?
people out of growing because their life is gonna get harder, not easier, and more
Yeah.
stressful, not less.
Now, if you go to 2, I think you should try to find a path to 3
Mm.
because 3 to 5 allows you, if you do it right, and it depends on what your unit economics are, you can start to pay above store.
Mm.
And, I understand if one's like, look, I bought myself a job for 50 to $100,000. I need 2, 3 because I gotta make more money. I get it. Be smart about it. Then go even further and put a director of ops into place if you can, and get
Mm.
somebody else involved with that too, is how I kind of look at it. Like once you go, you got to go a little bit further.
Okay. Okay. That's really good advice. Um, that's interesting. Yeah, there was this is where my heart probably lies in this conversation more than anything is one of the things I noticed that you are interested and probably phenomenal at talking about is the what I wrote down, the empathy advantage, and that emotional intelligence uh, is an ROI. And I'm fascinated with that. So let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, it's I think supervisors, shift leads are your bridge between what you expect and what gets executed. Now your general manager and your chef are probably your most important, obviously, in the store. But I think the shift leads are forgotten heroes. And I remember being, you know, 19 in college, and I get the shift lead because I'm responsible, and I get a key and the ability to comp food. But I have no idea how to have this conversation tomorrow morning, that when somebody comes in and starts to give me excuses of why they were late, and maybe it's a family member was sick, maybe it's they were out partying because I was with them the night before, maybe it's these types of things. How we have these conversations is everything. And so to understand how to be a better, let's even strip this back from empathy. Let's just talk about communication. You know, these shift leads. went through COVID too. You know, we're seeing a generation. I mean, I'd love to tie back in when you want. Let's swing this back around to anti-fragile. Is we're seeing people struggle between not knowing how to have an empathetic conversation and therefore not knowing to have um, conflict, healthy conflict, and therefore they avoid asking somebody to please put the rag back in the sanitizer bucket. Hey, I understand what's going on. I still need, tell me what you need from me so that we can get you here on time, right? Oh, somebody's sick in the family. Okay, let's figure this out of how we can get your shifts covered. Empathy and effective and communication, it's huge. So I am hell bent to zero up now. When we say develop supervisors into leaders, we have a great series 101 through 104. And these courses talk about de escalation, they talk about effective communication, accountability. You know, during the pandemic, we got hired by the city of Santa Monica to teach retail associates, like 18-year-olds, how to talk to somebody who didn't want to wear a mask at the time. And I'm not getting into any of that. And I don't like to tell this story so much, but I think it works with this case. All we knew was they were struggling at the door because people were coming in and yelling, and so we built a course on de-escalation to teach them how to de-escalate the scenario because it was mandatory at the time. Well, what we realized was actually we went and interviewed everybody from all facets, all beliefs on everything about this. We realized that it was actually a course on empathy, that what we were teaching these 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds were actually how to ask better questions, how to get somebody, how to agree with somebody first so that they will listen to you. You know, we're hardwired as human beings where in seconds, you're either my enemy or my friend because
Mm.
it's either safety or not. So teaching people with the skills of empathy and to say, I totally get that you don't want to wear this. This is right. It's terrible. It's you can't breathe or right, and but legally, I know it's the law, but legally you got to help us out. We're a small business. We don't want to get in trouble. Okay, I get it. By de-escalating through empathy and finding common ground, our wiring starts to say, well, okay, I'm going to listen to you. Sounds like you got my back. Sounds like you're on my side. So effective communication starts with empathy because it's showing somebody we're on your side. Now let's go to the area of conflict. We teach a 20-year-old how to have an awkward conversation with a 20-year-old. And we do that because they need to do it, but we teach them how to do it through empathy. And we teach them how
Mm.
to do it through asking questions and curiosity and not coming in with command and control, coming in with insight and understanding and it's just a healthy foundation, and then you build on that. So we are obsessed over this, and the way that we do this is we capture people's stories. You know, we get I love this one. An 18-year-old was like, "How do I tell somebody they're doing something wrong without telling them they're doing something wrong? I want to be nice about it." And she then told her lesson. She was like, "I was told, I learned from a boss who was like, say like, I noticed you're doing it this way. I used to do it this way, but then I learned if you do it like this, it's going to be a little bit easier." Well, she came at it from an empathetic approach and it started to work. And so it's the foundation of everything. As we build out our leadership training, we're we're tying that into everything, empathy and understanding. Because you got to have these conversations. That's the problem is people are avoiding them, and that's worse than anything.
We are, uh, God almost makes me well up just thinking about this because we spend so much time in these silos of our screens and social media, which are designed to create conflict. They are designed to piss us
Yeah,
off and
yeah.
make the other, whoever is on the other side of our opinion on this, the enemy. And that is not a healthy thing for our culture and our society. And we have a generation who's been brought up with these. tools. And we're so smart though, Jason, that even my 21-year-old daughter was home for Thanksgiving and said, I took TikTok off my phone. I can't. Like,
That's great.
I can't
That's
do
great.
it. And she said, Dad, because they all laugh at me about my flip phone and whatever. But she's like, I'm like considering getting a flip phone for Christmas. I don't like this. And
Yeah.
we know better, and we know we're being manipulated, and we're waking up to that a little bit more and more, I think, as a society now. And I think that's a healthy thing because we don't know how to have healthy conflict. We know how to sit there on a screen in the safety of our home and type horrible things. But what we don't know how to do is sit in front of that person that maybe that was directed to and say, here's, how I feel about this, and I want to learn how you feel about it. Let's see if we can find ways to, respect each other's opinions, even if we don't agree. And so much of that is just empathy and understanding the humanity in these how important that is to not just our country or our culture, but our world. And we're if we're not able to understand each other, then like where is humanity going? I know that's like this big philosophical
Yeah.
thing, but I mean, at the end of the day, like that stuff really, really, really matters. And we do have a generation that sat at home in COVID and frankly, that didn't grow up like you and I did with a house phone where you answered the phone and talked to
Hmm.
people. They learned to do this and type. And then
Yeah.
you got somebody that you want to answer the phone in your restaurant. And they're like, I don't know how to talk to people. Like, that's not
Right.
good.
Yeah. That's not good. And so let's go back tying to another reason why I'm obsessed with helping small business. I'm a co-founder of the Independent Hospitality Coalition in Los Angeles. We've got 1,500 members, and I dedicate a lot of time to providing resources to small business. And that goes back to the importance of restaurants or small business to build an ecosystem where people can have different opinions, be able to communicate them, in a healthy way, be able to show that we probably have more in common than not, be able to get in the weeds together and depend on each other, and um, you know, to team up in particular things, to have these conversations of mental struggles. You had a guest on recently, right? Her struggles of um, abuse, right? Going sober, and
Oh, Kimberly
to be
Freer.
able,
Yeah.
yeah, to be able to have those conversations of how important it is to be able to know that where you talked about it in this episode, but I've heard you talk about it before. Um, Levels of anxiety or feeling anxious, right? That you will, you've been open about when you will feel anxious. I try to say, don't say I have anxiety. Like I have a husband who we say, I'm like, when you have anxiety, you own it. Or when you say my anxiety, it's sort of an ownership of it as I'm feeling anxious about. Now, somebody might punch me in the face for that, so I don't need to get into that
Oh,
idea. But
no, I think that's a great way to look at it, man, for sure.
yeah, and so it's sort of something that's building. So I think I love I love the stresses of a restaurant because it's enough of a pressure cooker that emotions can boil, and then it's enough of an opportunity to teach people how to manage it and to talk with that and to handle it and to treat it like, you're an athlete. Did you drink enough water? Did you stretch before? It's a big part of my restaurants with that. And then you take are we communicating with somebody who we disagree with, but we're working together, we're finding common ground, and then you take that out into the world because when you're together, right? You find sort of common ground. It's the tools of this is sort of going off beat, but I thought about this before. I love one of our little lessons, these little micro lessons. It said, somebody's freaking out next to you on the line, and it's becoming too much to not turn and say, just calm down, chill out, right? You can't, doesn't work. What you stop is you say, I got you. I'm here with you. And that idea of safety, that idea of like, you know, talk to me. I got like I'm here with you, and to say that to somebody, it hits that core, that human core of being like, okay, you're on my side. It's that coddling of a baby. It goes back to in a good way of saying, I feel safe, I feel secure. So going back to what we're talking about the conflict of the world where the algorithms are getting at each other, if we create an in-person experience where the phones are away, where the pressure cooker can build, but we know how to handle and work with each other around it, and we get taught the tools and the lessons, then we take that over to life and family. That goes back to why it's just so important. So I'm obsessed over you know, s- developing supervisors into leaders who know how to work with that with their teams. Um, Compliance, understanding each other's differences, understanding others' insecurities and vulnerabilities, and safety, ultimately making sure that we're all looking out for each other in a safe and healthy environment. That's why we're focused on those three core elements, because that's how we're contributing to the world of what you're talking about.
Mm, man, I love that. Ah,
How do we, and I know I don't want to take up too much time with this, but let's go back to anti-fragile real quick while I got your attention. Um, you know, how do you, what have guests shown you? What have you seen is working with that balance? And as a father and as a,
mm.
founder and as somebody who talks to a lot of restaurant owners and guests, what is your recommendation of that balance between, we need to flex a little bit and get some grit to show that we can grow and expand, while also working with a generation who rightfully feels more anxious than others because they haven't had the opportunity to interact because of COVID and things like this. So there's a bit of that soft glove, but you need to push it a little bit so we can
Yeah.
feel what our barriers are and grow beyond them. What are some things that are working that you found or that people have told you?
Whew. Boy, what a interesting question and what an interesting topic. Because again, it's like the confluence of being willing to roll up your sleeves and do the job and show up when you're supposed to and work hard with your teammates and having a little grit and having a little resilience, but also um, understanding when, I mean, you articulate that so well when somebody is freaking out, of not judging and being like, calm down. I mean, the worst thing you can say to somebody that's not calm is calm down, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
and, you know, I think about this literally, Jason, almost daily. I mean, I had a long conversation with a restaurant owner this morning about um, how important it has been. He's been in the business for 30 years. How important it's been for him to make sure that he takes care of, like he's into fitness, to take care of his body, to understand what he's putting into his body, to drink less alcohol now than he used to, but not like completely rule it out. And it's like I feel like it's a daily practice, right? Of minor little bits of improvement where we're never going to get to the mountaintop, but we know where we want to go and we're moving in that direction. But you climb a mountain, you're going to two steps forward and maybe one step back, or you have to walk down through a valley to get back to the next. I do think that when you talk about anti-fragility, and I think that embracing short periods of acute stress is important, but also one of the concepts or one of the key aspects of that concept is having time to rest afterwards. So to give you like a really specific example, if you think about lifting weights, okay, so I'm going to very short period of time, or I do sprints. I'm like obsessed with sprinting. I'm going to sprint for a very short period, and then I'm going to let my body have a lot of time to reset and rest so that when I sprint, I have everything I need. And
Hmm.
I feel like that's talking to Kimberly, like it's a very hard balance in the restaurant industry to find time for yourself, time for your family, time for your friends, time for your job, and to get that quote balance. And part of the imbalance and what that often leads to or has for many decades in the restaurant industry is mental health issues, substance abuse issues. You throw in all the again, these screens and these tools and the anxiety that that can foster. I don't know the answer to that question. I think it's an important question, an important conversation. And I think that I know that personally, every single day, this is the stuff I think about. And some days are better than others. And some, I mean, I tell people like, if you've listened to the podcast, you have. I talk about Jocko Willink a lot, his little good thing, which is 3 minutes long on YouTube, where he just says the auto response to every problem is good. You have to acknowledge the problem. You can't just go, oh, good. But it is important, I think, to train your mind. And I mean, I have that on this flip. I have a browser, and it's very hard to get something on this flip phone. But I do save that 3 minute clip to remind myself, probably 4 or 5 days a week, I watch that to remind myself, okay, this is a challenge. Good. Because I'm going to lean into this, learn from it, embrace it, and try to overcome it. Stoic thinking, obstacle is the way, however, you get into the psychology of that. But man, I don't even know what I just said other than I don't know how to answer your question, but I think about it every day. And a lot of the owners that come on here, we talk about that. And I don't know that there is a simple answer to that, but I think it's something you have to be intentional and mindful about because this industry will burn you up and chew you up and spit you out if you're not careful.
Yeah, I think we're all trying to figure it out together. And I think, yeah, there's not a quick answer. I know at the end of the day, what's always worked for me in the leadership was having an honest conversation with someone, going back to what you were talking about your why you're asking for things. I think if there's one very concrete thing that anybody listening as a restaurant owner could do is the next person you hire, maybe you've always done this, maybe not, but the next person that gets hired, the GM or their direct report, if it's the chef, spends 15, 20 minutes on their first day before they do anything, just talking to them and saying, what's up? Why are you here? What's going on? What's important to you? And letting them know what's important to you as well. And maybe that's, building the foundation to, I know it's building a foundation to lowering turnover, schedules, people show up more. There's a great idea that people don't show up for the business, they show up for the people, right? And so all those things work, but maybe getting to the answer of being able to push somebody a little bit and let them shape out of the from the fragility or the non-breakable but stressful moments is if you've built that relationship from the start, going back to the idea of this person's on my side or this person knows what matters to me, I'm going to trust them a little bit more, and have those conversations. I think it couldn't hurt. Maybe that's part of it. We've always sold online training. We're absolutely working towards a blended approach now where we're working with companies, which is here's the course, but then here's the task to do. Hang out, get together. Here's some questions. Here's role playing. Here's moments to role play and transition and work through. So maybe we can tie stuff in that way, because I think it really is about a blended approach. This is great. This has really given me, on that book, food for thought of how we can approach it. Is we're going to go back into like content building in the new year. I'm going to take some of this, really think about it for our network of restaurants. It's cool. It's scary and it's cool. And we all don't know, but we know we got to figure it out. And we should just figure it out as a collective community, including the 15-year-olds or 16-year-olds whose first job that is, get them involved in the conversation.
Well, pendulums always swing, right? So like when you and I were growing up, I mean, I remember my first, job like washing dishes or I'll never forget like chopping garlic one night. I came home, my mom's like, you can't even stay in the house. You smell like I can't stay. But it was like it was a lot of yelling, and like you dumbass 15-year-old, like you suck, like but it was kind of like it was like, ooh, okay. Well, it was kind of what we were used to then and but it's not healthy. It was just part of how things were done back then. Now there are a lot of young people that are very fragile and that's not healthy. Like letting them stay, whether you're their parent or their friend or their employer, you you don't want to just ignore fragility because that doesn't do that person any favors. I mean, life is challenging and it's going to be. And if you're not willing to um, take some healthy risks that can sometimes not work out, life's going to be really hard. I think what you're talking about, which is so important, is just knowing that I'm willing to maybe take these risks if I feel known, loved, supported, validated, but loved in a way that also is like, we're going to nudge you, but you're going to learn from it. And because once you realize that, okay, that was uncomfortable, but I got through it. I literally have been dealing with this recently for a conversation that I'm like, I dreaded it for so many days. I woke up anxious, full of anxiety, fearing this conversation. And as oftentimes is the case, the actual conversation went 1,000 times better than I thought
Yeah.
it would.
Right.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh, well,
Yeah.
actually, all right. I spent
Yeah.
so much time worrying about it and in my head about it. But once we learn that we can do these things, we build a little bit more resilience, and then we keep doing it. We build a little bit more resilience, and frankly, it's on us. Like it's on our generation to. I think of my kids and their friends and that generation, like they are surrounded with a lot of um, a lot of negativity, a lot of negative tools, a lot of anxiety driving forces, and it's on us to help them learn and navigate this weird world that we don't really understand ourselves. But we have to help people. You come back to like, hey, gosh, what a great country we live in. And you can do anything you want and be anything you want to be if you're willing to do the work and take some of those risks. And we just need more of that. And it's up to us to help foster that. And so it's folks like you, Jason, that live this and do this. And so there's like I have profound appreciation for what you do every day and the intention you do it with.
I appreciate it. And I think something to put at a core there as you were talking is, especially in California and definitely New York and some of these places, is that's where I like compliance as the baseline too, because people are scared from a litigious perspective to have some of these conversations or to push the boundary. And
Yeah.
so we focus on, and that's the next evolution of our leadership development,
Mm.
corrective action notices and to have these in a or termination or different things or um coaching conversations and all this type of stuff, to have it in a way that you're protecting yourself and you're protecting the team, because to shy away from it's terrible. It's one of the reasons we work, you know, legally in the state of California, to we're getting rid of some of these laws and that lawyers are using to take down businesses, because we're like, you've taken away the opportunity for people to be people and all of their weirdness and struggles and figure it out. So that goes back to why, it's nice hearing you say that back to me, in how you just phrased that, really solidified and affirmed our 2026 push of safety, compliance, and leadership development, and how all three of those really go together at the end of the day to build a healthy culture. It is the foundation of a healthy culture that protects both the team and the business. And I think it's a win-win. So that it's all of that together. So thank you for that, for the way that you said that back. It's good. As we mind map 2026 and deploy resources, as we're,
Well,
both small business owners, um, that's where we're pushing, and that helps.
I will say, whether it's schedule fly or something else, what you just said reminded me of something that you do, especially if you're in some of those states. Boy, you really need to have documented activity when you get, and we have this happen all the time. Uh, I got a wrongful termination suit. I need to show that somebody was scheduled these time that they get, and like documenting like in a with a click of a button Well, gosh, we scheduled you all these times. You gave up 85% of the shifts that you were scheduled for. You requested time off all the time. So if for that alone, folks, if you're listening, this is not this shouldn't be this podcast is not about schedule fly. So it's just about having the right tools to cover yourself in an increasingly litigious society is like really important because if you don't, that stuff can come back and bite you really hard. And that's not just scheduling, that's all kinds of like tools and technology that can really help. And certainly, gosh, get the right systems and processes in place with Jason or somebody for that as well, so that you can have those conversations and you're not putting your business and your livelihood in jeopardy.
Yeah, I like to take two approach with every person that comes in the door, every team member. Um, I'm going to invest like you are going to be the best player in the world, and that you are here for something that I want to serve you for, and you are here for something that we need you to help serve our mission. So everybody that comes in, I'm going to invest like you are here forever, and I'm also going to assume you're going to sue me. And so I treat every single employee and I tell every single owner, I don't care who they are, assume they're going to sue you and treat that as a positive to make sure you've got all your ducks in a row and don't use this as a negative thing and don't shrug your shoulders at it because chances are it's very possible, but you can mitigate that. You can get ahead of it and don't use that as a reason to not have the difficult conversations to grow or challenge somebody or to give them an opportunity to grow. Set them up, set yourself up, just protect yourself.
Well, it's really smart, Jason. That's risk, that's hedging, and that's risk mitigation. And you think of I mean, it's a very simple thing, risk reward. I mean, if you're not protecting that downside risk, it could be endless,
Endless.
right? Reward is very little amount of time and effort and energy and investment to just get rid of that risk.
Yeah.
Dude, what a fun conversation, man. I am so glad that we had a chance to sit down and talk. And I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you that you've clearly you listen to some of these episodes. So thank you for being a listener as well.
Yeah. Longest standing. I think you and Eric Cacciatore got the two longest standing podcasts.
I love him. He's doing such a great job with that. I'm
I
so
mean, you've
proud
been
of him.
going for a while. So from the book, from everything. So you've been running it. So thank you for that. You've been running your path.
Well, we're going to get back into. Actually, would love to talk to you sometime. I really feel like we need to be more than just a podcast. I'd like restaurant owners in court to be more of a community where, you know, people listen to this and then maybe they want to connect with this owner or maybe they want to learn more or, where we have subject matter experts like you in there. And I'd love to pick your brain on that sometime because you've got the IHC there and you got 1,500 members. I always think like if I'm a restaurant owner, like where do I go to? It's a it can be a lonely road. Like, where do I go other than just the other people I know around me on my block? Like, where do I go learn? And that's why we do this podcast, but it's hard to digest all this and, you know, um, pull it all together. And when you hear nuggets, like, I want to know more about lease negotiation. Like, so that's been on my mind is to, you know, really turn this into more of some sort of a community that gives restaurant owners a place to go and share, learn from each other, connect, help each other solve problems, things like that. And maybe there's a lot of these communities already out there. I don't know, but
Yeah, some are, some aren't. I'll talk to you about it offline as much as you'd like. I think, as with anything, it's how much can you simplify the noise and maximize the signal. So you've collected a lot of information and you've aggregated. And I think even I saw a LinkedIn post say that you drop it into the robot and have the robot synthesize it. So you can put things into a simple chat. Um, but yeah, I think it's local is something good. That's why we're doing that with the IHC. But I can tell you, there's a lot of platforms out there that you just literally turn it on and you could fill it in. You don't need to be, it's not the tech. You don't need the tech. They're waiting for you to pay $49 a month and to build the community space for people.
Mhm.
But I think most people, it's just you're asking yourself, are you an active community pusher, or is it a place that's a resource tab that people come to and they click on certain things? And that's, again, we can dive deeper into it. Um, the hardest thing is to continue to build content that people show up for if it's not specifically what they're looking for. You know,
Mhm. Yeah, good point. Good point. Okay. Yeah, I would love to talk to you more about it. Hey man, thank you. If you have, I'm sure you probably have rated the podcast, but if you haven't, we'd love a rating on Apple or Spotify or whatever. And all of you listening, the same. What a wonderful conversation and a great episode. High value. We need to do this. I don't know, man, like once every 6 months or something like that.
I'm down. Yeah, I hope the listeners got some good, try to keep it focused. So that's great. Let's do it. Pick topics, dive deep.
Love it, man. Jason, thank you.
Uh,
Listeners, thank you. We appreciate you. And more episodes coming soon. We will see you.